All right, let's kick things off. So like I said, talking through AI-led growth engine and how we 24x our traffic and 4x revenue. For those of you, I'll introduce myself here in a second, but before I kick off, I always like to start with some kind of thought-provoking statement. And I personally believe that every single knowledge worker is going to need to be completely retooled in the next 12 months. And I've gone through this process myself of what I like to call becoming AI native, but I really think that if you take nothing away from today, this is hopefully something that will inspire you to think about how to retool yourself and with everything that's happening with AI. And hopefully this will be a very practical session, not just high level thoughts, right? But one thing that in my journey that really helped me was thinking through, and this is another way to kind of think about how to approach AI, especially around go-to-market and growth, is if you had to delegate 100% of your job, how would you do it? And what is the thought process? How would you start going through all those steps? And that's usually the same thought process that's required for you to start really collaborating with AI and delegating more of your day-to-day with AI and be able to achieve better outcomes. And so a little bit about me before we get started. Marcel Santilli. I recently started my own company called outbound. So it's kind of weird I think this is the first time I speak at a session officially since then. And actually I haven't even announced it in LinkedIn. So you guys get to know about it before anyone else. But a little bit of my background, I was CMO at Deepgram, and prior to that at Scale AI, Service Titan, HashiCorp. So I was very fortunate to work with a lot of awesome companies that grew really fast. And then GrowthX, I'll talk a little bit later about how we started that journey, but it's been really exciting. We just hit 20 clients and went from 0 to 2 million in ARR in just a few months while in stealth. And so it's been really, really exciting. And hopefully it's an inspiration that even marketers can start companies. And so really, really awesome. But today I want to talk a little bit and share my journey and how I like to call I became AI native, and then talk through a bit about does AI content actually work and some of the things we've seen both at Deepgram and also with other clients and other engagements we've had, some really well-known companies, and then a little bit touching on how to turn a lot of these signals into opportunities and some of the things we've done there as well. And I'm hoping to leave at least 5 to 10 minutes towards the end to demo a bunch of stuff. And so I'm going to fly through, but I have a second screen over here. I'm going to watch the chat as well. So if there's things you have questions or comments, I don't see you all's face. And so I need the energy, right? So keep the chat going. Cool. All right. I like to start with the end and with the takeaways, which is what I hope from today is that I inspire you to try to become native to this technology. I've actually had multiple people that are working with us now that either quit their jobs or took 2 weeks off and just went super deep into this technology and started to think through how to become more AI native. Second thing is take a first principles approach to your work, decompose your work. Third, you can't delegate to AI what you can't delegate to another human. And this is where human expertise and your expertise can come in, and it's more of a collaboration. And then finally, find ways to just get started. So my journey and kind of how I started this, but it actually started with my daughter, Isabella. So it's some pictures of her. My wife and I actually went through this pretty hard IVF process, and also is transitioning from what I like to think of as a toxic work before Deepgram. And this all came kind of to a head as I joined Deepgram and I took paternity leave. And when I got back, one of the things that really motivated me was how do I spend more time on things that really energize me? And part of that was building. And so a lot of the process I started to go through last year was how do I start to delegate or eliminate some of the things that were really draining? And because what I noticed was that when a lot of my day was full of these draining activities or meetings or whatnot, I wasn't my best self at home either, but then when I had the opportunity to just build things and be energized, that, just everything else around my life became better, right? And so I started to think through, like, how do I apply AI? How do I start to retool myself? And I kind of came up with this little framework here of like, hey, how do I do more of the good stuff? And how do I find a way to eliminate like a lot of the shit that's just like doesn't feel like impactful, And AI was a huge part of this. I actually hired an EA and delegated a lot of things away, cluster my days, bought back some of my time, and then started to build, right? And in that process of building, one of the first things I did was I have a background in content and built a lot of content engines in the past for IBM, for HP, pretty much every job I've been at. And I wanted to figure out, does AI content actually work? And I ran into some of these insights where I saw there's a bunch of AI apps popping up, and I wanted to build a catalog really just for fun, but I ended up doing it for work. And so I ran into this tool called AirOps and started building these workflows and starting to figure out, hey, can I build a page that actually is better than what's already out there, mostly using AI? And that's how kind of this whole thing started last year. We launched this catalog called the AI Apps Catalog. We published over 4,000 pages, and I'll go through a little bit later part of our process of doing that. And it turned out it really exploded the traffic, and we 24x our traffic, and I'll go through some of the results. But this all started from a place of curiosity and just wanting to learn and going super deep, and then just kind of having almost like a personal project that became a work project as well. And in the process of doing that, I spent over 1,000 hours in just building these workflows to how to automate this process so I can publish 3,000 to 4,000 pages, but the results were pretty crazy at the time, and they're still holding up. We just saw this kind of massive increase in traffic. We launched a newsletter called AIminds.com that just crossed 300,000 subscribers. We launched a startup program as part of this, where we have over 300 startups. Our backlinks, domain authority, and even our brand awareness really skyrocketed. But one really cool thing started to happen. A lot of people within the company started to wanted to automate a lot of things. I don't know if there's anyone from Deepgram in the audience, but we actually have a channel now that's called Automation Channel, and where we're building 100 automation in 30 days. We're already on automation 48. And now everyone is building workflows and finding ways to become more AI native, which is really, really cool. And so we've seen all these benefits, but beyond that, and I'll talk through again, like this is more of the story, but then I'll go through and demo some of the things we build and how we did this. And the newsletter is called AIminds.com. But we also saw a huge inflection point in the business itself, right? So a lot of people think through like, well, this content is not super high intent. What are the conversion right away? But for us, it was more thinking through like this longer term play of building trust, kind of having this rising tide effect, right? Where we had people that started to convert to a newsletter, started thinking more like a media company. And but then we just saw this magical thing happen where every single metric that we were tracking that we actually care about started having an inflection curve, even though it wasn't this perfectly direct correlation from one to the other from day one, right? And then this other thing happened too, which was even though we had a 24x traffic, we didn't have a 24x increase in brand searches, but we had a 3x increase in brand searches. And for those of you that manage paid campaigns, like your brand terms and people searching for your brand is probably the highest conversion rates and what you really want to increase. And so being able to impact that is huge, right? And we started seeing this massive increase in awareness. And so as part of this process, I started to do workshops and just showing people exactly what we did. And this is like a 5-hour workshop. So this is kind of like a summary of this workshop, if you will. And from that, we just started to see and work with a lot of clients, a lot of brands, and some of them actually didn't work with us. They just went on their own journey. Some of them might actually be in the audience, and we built a little community around this. So both people that worked with us directly and people started to apply this, and they all started to see kind of similar inflection curves, right? Which is kind of insane to see. And so these are just some of our the brands we either work with or people that came to the workshops and started to apply this. And a lot of this knowledge, like, we share pretty openly, so it's not any kind of secret or anything, but it's really the approach here and kind of the strategy. This is kind of how I summarize it, which is you still need to come up with the right strategy and the right playbook and understanding your audience, understanding your product. We use a ton of AI workflows to summarize this and to help us do research on personas, ICP, and I'll show you here in a second. But then you also need to couple that with execution. And part of the issue I've always had as a CMO was you hire these agencies or you hire freelancers, and they'll come and they'll give you a ton of suggestions, but usually they won't have the time to execute on those suggestions, right? And so I wanted to kind of solve for all of those things. And this is kind of what I recommend as you're thinking through it, is find ways to build these AI workflows and find ways to automate and streamline some of the things, but couple that with experts in the loop. And so we hire managing editors that are in the loop that actually help do the groundwork and actually taking it to the last mile, right? And then find ways to automate it, but all informed by strategy in the right context, right? So this combination can be really, really powerful, right? And before I jump into some of the demos and kind of thinking through like the details of what we build, this question we get quite a bit, which is, hey, isn't Google going to punish me or my site if I have AI content? And the answer is yes and no. And the interesting thing here is that Google hasn't really changed the way it approaches understanding content and what's useful or not. The main difference is just how people produce that content, right? So all those same context here still applies, which is you need to add value in whatever you're producing. You need to be useful and relevant in some way. You need to ideally over deliver on what your promise or your headline, your title, your description is your promise, right? You need to deliver and keep people hooked. So it just like if you're producing a podcast or if you're doing a social post, like all those same principles apply. And you need to have some level of oversight and quality control. I built programs where we're hiring a bunch of freelance writers, and we ran into quality issues the same way. So it's not because it's AI or not AI. And a lot of what I recommend that we've seen work is you're using AI in order to plant a lot more seeds and then learn from those so that you can keep coming back around and enriching that content. And I'll show you some of the workflows we've had where we're like enriching, hundreds of pages a month and adding additional insights to it and doing it in a really, really unique way. However, if you're a brand new domain and you have no domain authority, don't go and publish 1,000 pages tomorrow, right? And so it's about approaching it in a thoughtful way, and the amount of how aggressive you can be is directly proportional to how much domain authority you already have. But for example, we're working with big brands like Reddit, and with those, like, we can be a lot more aggressive because they have a ton of domain authority, right? But if you're a brand new domain, you want to be a little bit more thoughtful. But we've seen this work really well across a bunch of different use cases. But all right, so let's get into the demo. I flew through, and I think I have about 15 minutes, so got tons of time. And if people have questions, posted in the chat here. But I want to show, starting with the strategy, kind of how we approach this. And the way we do this is and I'll show you the workflows behind the scenes of kind of how we do this. But I like to build a content OS, which is essentially taking every single assignment, that we can potentially create, and putting it all into, we use Airtable, but I'm sure there's other platforms out there you can use. And so one of the things we do is looking at it both from a competitive perspective. So we analyze, literally thousands and thousands of keywords, and we do keyword gap analysis. But this is where I want to start to show you some of the things we can do with AI, right? And so what we are able to do is, let me just pull up a good example here, is to actually go through, and we did this times over 1,000 for Ramp, one of our clients, is we identify a primary keyword and then we're able to understand how relevant is it to this business. So we created an AI workflow that I'll show you in a second that does a custom relevance score. And then we pull all this data from SEMrush and other places to understand like, hey, keyword difficulty. But then we go a step deeper and we start to understand also like the user intent and a bunch of other things as well. So like there's a bunch of other things that we can do here. And then once we have this entire content OS, then we can start executing all the way to publish and actually getting a lot of this content live as well. So it's just a high level example here. We did the same thing with Reddit, where we've actually analyzed over 2,500 of these assignments as we got started, and I'll show you the workflows here in a second. But the point here and the takeaway is, and I can share some of these templates as well afterwards. Connect with me on LinkedIn. But main takeaway here is you need to be able to have a central place where it's kind of your operating system for everything you're doing, from ideation all the way to publish, and refreshing and be able to understand everything in one single place, right? So everything's here programmatically, but then you can kind of see a little bit of the behind the scenes of kind of how we're building this, where we're starting with maybe a keyword, and we have all this research that we already done on the company, and let's say brand guidelines, CTA, and then we start with keyword research, and we're able to go through, you can see how many steps we go through just to do keyword research around this, right? And then from there, we look at we start to generate a title. And a lot of it, again, like this is kind of more of a preview because we only have 30 minutes, and I just want to show you what's possible. And then I'll share some resources as well. I have other videos that I recorded that are like much longer, but all of this, we go through this whole process, and there's multiple steps here where we're actually reviewing the entirety of the content. And so you can see like this is just the base article that's generated here. And then from here, we then have feedback loops where an editor will review, provide feedback, and then regenerate and adapt that article. And you can see like this is a final output or close to final output, right? But then what's really cool is like you can have a lot of examples where, let's say this one is for one of our clients, Homebase, where we're ranking pretty high for a keyword like annual income, right? And you can kind of see the output. Or there's another example I like to use where you can start to use AI, because now you can scale it a lot faster to where you find an opportunity like, let's say, per diem rates, and it does really well. So then you can start adapting to, let's say, other cities, right? And so here's another example where both of those do really well, and then you can start to scale, and that's why we've been able to scale. But I want to show you just a few things here, and then I'll show a few other demos. And but the part that's really interesting, this is a client that actually like we're kicking off later today, and we were doing some cute like competitive research. So we came up with 3,500 competitive articles where some of their competitors rank for, and we're able to do all of this research programmatically. I had it running overnight. And so for each one of these, we processed over 25,000 tokens for just one of these times 3,500. And so the power here of what's possible is really taking, and I'll show you the workflow here. It's not too complex in some of these cases, right? Where we're doing keyword analysis on understanding the keyword, and then we're analyzing that. We're then scraping the competitive page. We're looking at the top search results related to that keyword, and then we're trying to understand why does those keywords rank, and what is the user intent, and then we're dumping all of that into this grid here, right? Except we're now able to do that times 3,500, and then this is an example of us building a custom scoring for every single one of these assignments, because we want to filter out things that might not be relevant, right? So for example here, you are a business analyst, an SEO expert. Here's some research I did on the ICP. This is analyze the following, and here's the criteria for coming up with this score. And now you have this perfect custom score to be able to do it times 3,500, right? And then like, this is literally crazy because I mean, I did this last night, right? Like if you look at this, like, and it takes a while to load, this is like over probably 20,000 hours of work, right? Like you're talking about, we scrape, probably 20, 30,000 pages. We looked at every single keyword. We built a custom scoring for every single article. And this is just day one of the engagement, right? And this is day one of what you're able to do in spending one night doing this, right? And this is what becoming AI native means, is that you have the superpower of being able to build these really freaking cool things and then use your human creativity to do it, right? So it's pretty cool. Like this is, again, like a bunch of these workflows. I'll show you one more thing. We did competitor research. So this can apply, like in this case, like these are all this client's competitors. They're kind of like a fundraising platform for schools and K-12, and then we're able to go for each one of these and start to understand like the features of that competitor. Like we can look at the description. We can build even an ICP analysis for every single one of their competitors, and I mean, this is stuff that you can use for sales enablement, for example, right? So this was just the beginning where we started with content, but then what we started to notice is like you can take it so much further and start to just apply these workflows and build these workflows for a lot of different use cases, right? So this is a demo one we built for Ramp, one of our clients, and this one, it's a follow-up from a call, where after a call, we take the transcript, we do research on the prospect, research on the seller, and then we scrape the website of the client, and then we start to understand both the prospect as well as the seller, try to find conversation starters and things you have in similar with the person, so you're going through this whole thing. And you can see it live, like making a lot of these kind of analysis, right? And then everything, so that at the end, you end up with this really amazing email. And I'll show you here in a second. I'm running it live so you can see it happen. But, and I'll show you the prompt while it's doing that. But it's pretty simple, right? Like, hey, I'm taking the brand guidelines. I'm taking a description of the company. I'm taking a description of the seller, a description of the prospect, the transcript that we transcribe, and additional research I did. I'm asking it to write a first draft, and then I'm giving it quotes from their CEO so that the email actually sounds more like Eric, their CEO. And you're going to see here in a second, this is a follow-up email, right? And this follow-up email actually mentions like very specific things that happen on the call, right? And and this is pretty good, and you can send this as a draft to. So after every single call, every single demo, you can have this draft ready. So by the end of the day, if you're an AE and you're pretty busy, like you might have a bunch of these like ready to go so that you can send and be way more efficient, right? And so here's another one that we did. This is like a prospect. This is like an outbound one where we start by scraping the homepage of a prospect. We create a brief on this prospect. So I use metadata. So this is Ramp sending an email to Gil and metadata, right? We create a brief on the prospect. So this research we did on Gil, and then we do some additional research on metadata. We did a psychological analysis on Gil, responsibilities, objectives, what are his major concerns and fears related to his job, customer satisfaction and retention, scaling challenges, financial management, talent acquisition, top pain points. And all of these, this is just like PhD as a service, right? And then this is what's really cool. Then I fed it a bunch of different frameworks of cold emails. And so the first one, it's kind of like this direct approach. Second one is anecdotal approach. And then the third approach, a fourth approach, a fifth approach. And then I created another framework where, now it's doing a bunch of different outbound approaches as well. So this one is called the mousetrap. This one is called the mousetrap with context. This one's called the vanilla ice cream. This one is called the neuro insight. Anyways, so you can see, I didn't generate one outbound email. I generated actually 17 in multiple versions of this, and then I feed the whole output here. So I have the research on the company, the research on the prospect, every single email draft, and it's all here and generated automatically, right? Now this is a demo of really overdoing it, but hopefully you see what's possible here, right? This other one, really quickly, you feed it a URL, and it actually uses a framework of this copywriter guy named Harry, and it actually analyzes that page and suggests ways to improve that page, you know, and it does automatically, right? And so, anyways, you can see how powerful this stuff is, and like when you start to see like how many of these are built. This one we built for Deepgram as well, where it takes a transcript and it auto enriches Salesforce and with next steps, deal structure, technical details, you name it, right? I know I went super fast, but this is not meant to be a how-to. This is more meant to be of what is possible if you go super deep and start to build it. And by the way, like Aerops is a great platform, but we're using like Deepgram uses N8N, and there's a few other platforms out there, and it's less about the tool you're using. I think it's more about like becoming native to this technology, and I did want to wrap up super quickly on outside of this is like, how do you start to, hopefully you're growing organically, you're scaling things, but this is a little bit more practical on how to turn these signals into opportunities as well, because you can generate a lot of buzz, a lot of awareness, but if you're not converting, then you're not actually turning it into opportunities. And then I'll actually share the slides with everyone, but the main thing is like capture your first party intent signals and hopefully start to prioritize accounts you go after, act on those signals in a really programmatic way, and then try to start automating things. And then after that, start to use some of these workflows that I showed where you can hyper personalize things using all of this automation in one single place, so you can create AI powered outbound based on signals that are happening on your website. And these are the takeaways. And with that, I'll leave it on this as I take on questions, but I am doing a little self-promotional, but I'm doing a workshop. This stuff takes a lot of time, and it took thousands of hours. And so I always like to share it, and it's the way that I learn as well. But if people have questions, I'll take them. I think I have 2 minutes. Let's see. Can this be automated into an ABM strategy with demand base? Yes, absolutely. So what's really cool is like you can scrape every single prospect their website, and you can learn about their website, and then you can actually create a hyper personalized landing page, as part of the ABM strategy, right? You can pretty much, as long as you have the signal or as long as you have the data and you can pull that data in any programmatic way, you can do it. And then you can dump it directly into your CMS. Like there's, things you can do automatically with like Webflow, Strapi, and a bunch of other CMS platforms. So it's really cool. Let's see, any last questions? I'm watching the chat to see if there's any other ones, but anyways, follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'll keep sharing. I have a couple of videos of webinars that I've done, and feel free to send me a DM on LinkedIn. And anyone that wants to join the workshop, you're welcome to. And if you can't afford it or you can't expense it, just ping me. It's not about the money. And so just ping me, and we'll figure something else so that everyone can learn from it. So appreciate you all. And with that, we'll wrap up right on time, as I promised. So thank you so much, guys. Talk soon.